Deep beneath Saqqara, enormous granite boxes sit in shadow, polished so tightly they seem carved from something harder than stone itself. How did an ancient civilization move, shape, and place objects like these with such impossible precision? Saqqara lies just south of modern Cairo, part of the vast burial landscape of ancient Memphis. For centuries, it has been a place where kings, priests, and builders left behind clues that still feel unfinished. The Serapeum is the underground complex most closely tied to the mystery, a long network of corridors cut into the bedrock. It was used for the burial of sacred Apis bulls, yet the scale of the place feels far larger than that purpose alone. When the French archaeologist Auguste Mariette entered the site in the 19th century, he found a hidden world of tunnels and sealed chambers. What he uncovered did not look like a simple animal cemetery. It looked engineered for something immense. The first thing that stops people is the boxes themselves. Each one is a giant monolith, some weighing tens of tons, with corners so sharp and surfaces so smooth that they invite questions about tools, transport, and intent. Even today, the fit of the lids and the uniformity of the cuts can feel unsettlingly modern. Supporters of lost technology theories see in them a level of control that seems out of step with the conventional timeline of ancient stoneworking. That reaction is part of why the Serapeum became a touchstone for mystery seekers. If the boxes were made with copper tools and simple abrasives, how were such hard stones shaped so cleanly? And why with such monumental ambition? The underground setting matters too, because these chambers are not casual storage spaces. They are long, deliberate corridors where every turn seems designed to impress, contain, and perhaps ritualize the movement of the dead. Ancient Egyptian religion linked sacred bulls with royal power, fertility, and divine presence on earth. That belief explains the burial context, but it does not fully explain why the containers feel so overbuilt for the remains they held. The mystery deepens when you consider the logistics. Moving a single box through narrow passages, then lowering it into a chamber with such exact placement, would have required planning that still impresses engineers today. Some researchers focus on the tool marks and finishing quality, pointing to surfaces that appear carefully dressed rather than merely hacked from bedrock. In the right light, the stone seems less rough-hewn than deliberately perfected. Others notice the repetition, box after box, chamber after chamber, each one following a disciplined pattern. That consistency suggests a tradition strong enough to standardize the work, whether for ritual, prestige, or something now forgotten. This is where the conversation turns toward lost knowledge. If the builders mastered quarrying, transport, and finishing at this level, what else might they have known that never survived into the written record? Some enthusiasts go further and see the Serapeum as evidence of contact with a civilization far older or more advanced than mainstream history allows. They point to the sheer ambition of the site as if it were a signature of forgotten mastery. The strongest case comes from the objects themselves, because they are tangible and stubborn. Whatever story we tell about them has to account for the weight, the precision, the transport, and the underground placement all at once. That combination is what keeps the Serapeum alive in modern mystery culture. It is not a single strange artifact, but an entire environment built around a level of craftsmanship that still invites debate. Yet archaeology offers grounded possibilities too. The Egyptians were extraordinary builders, and large teams, patient labor, and generations of accumulated skill can accomplish feats that look impossible from a distance. Granite, though hard, can be shaped with abrasive techniques, and polished finishes are not unheard of in ancient stonework. Seen that way, the boxes become evidence of elite craftsmanship rather than vanished technology. Even so, the conventional explanation leaves a feeling of scale that is hard to shake. Skill can explain much, but the Serapeum still asks why so much effort was poured into chambers and containers of such intimidating grandeur. The site also sits inside a larger Egyptian pattern: temples, tombs, alignments, and sacred landscapes that seem to connect earth, sky, and kingship. For some observers, that pattern hints at knowledge organized around more than burial alone. That is why comparisons often drift towards sky traditions and divine instruction myths. Across Egypt, stories of gods, wisdom bringers, and celestial order gave meaning to monuments that still feel larger than their practical function. Still, the mystery is not solved by symbolism alone. The physical question remains stubbornly concrete. How did builders achieve such exact geometry in deep underground chambers, far from easy access and daylight? That is where the Serapeum becomes more than a relic. It becomes a test case for how much of the ancient world we think we understand, and how much may have vanished without a trace. Mariette's discovery opened the door, but it also left many questions behind. Some chambers were disturbed, some contexts were lost, and later interpretations had to work with fragments instead of a complete story. That missing context matters because without it the boxes can seem to float free of their original purpose. Were they purely ceremonial, or did they also carry a prestige that demanded engineering far beyond necessity? The most compelling details are the ones you can almost feel. The cold stone, the exact seams, the narrow corridors, the sense of enormous labor compressed into a hidden place. Those details are why the site still resists easy dismissal. At the same time, the alternative reading remains serious. Ancient Egyptians were not primitive. They were capable of planning, mathematics, ritual engineering, and monumental organization on a scale that still surprises modern minds. So the question is not whether they were capable of greatness. The question is whether the Serapeum preserves a form of greatness we have not yet fully recognized, or one that we no longer know how to read. That uncertainty is what keeps the place alive in the imagination. The boxes are real, the chambers are real, and the craftsmanship is real, even if the full meaning behind them remains out of reach. For believers in lost technology, the Serapeum feels like a surviving fragment of a far older capability, buried under later history. For cautious historians, it remains a masterpiece of ancient engineering whose full context is still incomplete. Either way, the site refuses to become ordinary. It stands in the desert as a reminder that the ancient world may have held skills, intentions, and meanings we have only begun to decode. And when you stand before those immense boxes, the final question comes back quietly. If this was only burial, why does it feel like the trace of something much larger? Perhaps that is the real mystery of the Serapeum.